What is the nature of the body free of free of contraction? Or is the body by design contracted?
The body, even in a body that has been completely swept clean of the separate self, still has functional contractions, functional tensions. In order to walk, or sit, or blink, or swallow, or breathe, certain muscles have to contract. And those contractions or tensions are not evidence of a separate self. So a body that has been swept clean of the separate self is just a body that where, let's say, the vast majority of the residues of separation have been washed out of the body. Those tensions which served only to support the feeling, I am a separate self. Those tensions have been dissolved. And such a body is felt as being light and transparent and open and highly sensitive and intimately in contact with whatever it contacts. It's like it's pervious, it's porous, it's not sealed up. So it's a sensitive, open, acutely alive body. And it's a loving body because it has no defenses unless defense is required for practical purposes, in which case it is perfectly capable of defending itself. But it doesn't have an attitude of defense whose purpose is to defend an ego. So it's a body that is vulnerable, that is open.
Seems like it would function just sort of like a spontaneous functioning.
Yes, it's no longer ruled by the dictates of the ego. In other words, the desires and fears of the ego are no longer ruling that body. Well, that doesn't mean to say that that body doesn't act. It does act. It just doesn't act on the dictates of a non-existent self. It acts in response to circumstances and situations from the outside, and it acts in response to impulses of love and happiness from the inside.
It's how to stay in the expansive state of the meditation.
Yes, okay, that's. I'm glad you asked that, because you shouldn't try to stay in the expansive state in the meditation. These meditations they're very powerful. They're like little homeopathic meditations, and homeopathic in the sense that we do almost nothing, but yet they're tremendously powerful. But then, when the yoga meditation comes to an end, we should just be completely normal again. That's why I said this morning something like, just stop doing anything, stop visualizing, stop swimming around as this particle of knowing, stop any of the. But these are all just loving ways of exploring and opening up our experience. But we should stop doing that. And this morning I said something, I'd stop doing that. Just open your eyes, just let everything be normal. But when the body, after one of these yoga meditations, without our realizing it, the body has been swept clean of some contractions. So when we go back to the normal state of the body, we don't go all the way back to where we started. We may go 9/10 of the way back, but we don't go all the way back. The body, the normal experience of the body, has been profoundly impacted by our experience in the meditation. It can never be the same again. It's like, it's exactly the same reason why a musician practices scales. For instance, or one of the reasons why a musician might practice scales is because, let's say, you're practicing scales and the interval between two particular notes you find difficult. Yes, let's say you have to go, you're playing a scale on just for instance on a treble recorder, and you have to go from E flat to F and back to E flat again. It's an awkward move. It's a slightly counterintuitive sort of move that you have to do with your fingers. It doesn't come naturally. We can all do this naturally. Yeah? That's easy. But sometimes if our fingers are asked to do something that they're not used to do, they can't do it smoothly. So every time you play a piece of music in B flat major, you find that you keep tripping up on the same point, and the same point is always in the interval between E flat and F. And it spoils the music every time you play it. So you go back to your sitting room and you play D, E flat, F, G, F, E flat, D, E flat, F, G. You go back and forth and you go back and forth and you go very, very slowly. You slow it down so that you make the transition between E flat and F very slowly, very relaxed, so there's not the slightest tension. And then you speed it up a little bit, and then you speed it up, and in the end you're practicing your scales at tempo. And then you stop your practice. You forget it. You go and make a cup of tea and go and pick your kids up from school or whatever it is you do. You forget your practice. You go to your next music session. You don't think about the scales. You don't think about anything. But your body has been reorchestrated. It's been rewired. In fact, your brain has also been rewired. The pathway from your eyes, the music, to your brain, to your finger, it's all been rewired by this practice. But you don't have to think about that. That's the beauty of it. It takes place below the threshold of thought. That's why it's so powerful, because thought doesn't interfere with it. So these yoga meditations are like practicing our scales. We're finding the places in our experience where we keep tripping up. We're exposing these awkward intervals, these places in the which in relation to our experience, that they're the places where we find ourselves continually coming into conflict in relationships. Old feelings of sadness or loneliness or unhappiness or the sense of being a failure or the sense of being unlovable, all these old feelings that continually appear in our relationships. After a while, you have a new relationship, and sure enough, after 6 months, that feeling of being unlovable appears and ruins the relationship. 2 years later, next relationship, it's all going great. 6 months' time, that old feeling of being unlovable comes up and ruins the relationship. 2 years later, new relationship, it's all going well. Surprise, surprise, 6 months later, that old feeling of being unlovable. And again and again and again. This something that we don't really understand, something that is deep within ourselves, that was laid down early on in our relationship with our parents, keeps being provoked in relationship. So that's just one of many examples. So what we're doing in the feeling of being unlovable in relationship is the equivalent of going from E flat to F on your flute. It's just one area where you keep tripping up. And so these yoga meditations, we go to the source of these feelings in the body, and we play our scales with them. That's what we were doing this morning, playing our scales. Then we forget them. We just stop. You come back to, so-called regular life, normality, go and have a cup of tea and carry on. But the body has been impacted. And I recommend that those of us that are interested do this, if we do these contemplations regularly, on a daily basis, not just during retreats, but at home, the body is literally rewired. They are tremendously powerful, and they have this approach. It has the power to get to the root of our addictions and our fears and our awkwardnesses and our anxieties and our loneliness in a way that nothing else does. It's tremendously powerful.
Yeah, that's it's one of the biggest realizations for me, is that actually the body just follows direction.
Yes, exactly. We have been encouraging the body for decades to be felt and to move and to act on behalf of a temporary finite self, and surprise, surprise, it does. So here we are re-educating the body to be felt and moved in a new way, and the body is so willing to be re-educated. It is so glad to be relieved of the tyranny of the ego.